Hello and welcome to our last episode from PlatformUptake.eu webinar series. My name is Alexander Nikolov and I'm working for Senu GmbH, which is a company based in Austria and coordinating the PlatformUptake.eu project. The idea of these virtual events is on one side to share relevant insights we gathered during the project, but beyond that, we would like to get in touch with further stakeholders from the ecosystem of open platforms in the active and healthy aging and assisted living domains, get additional information on existing capability gaps, innovation needs in the field, and feed this information back into the project. This particular webinar will demonstrate the role of pilots for the integration of digital solutions into open platforms for maintaining independent and safe living of older people. How important are the needs and requirements of older people as main beneficiaries of open platform services and digital solutions in general will tell us today Ms. Carina Dantas, who is the CEO of Shine to Europe based in Portugal. Carina will also share some important insight on the factors that need to be taken under consideration in order to successfully upscale the digital technology for older people. In the context of the uptake of digital solutions for active and healthy aging and open platforms, as facilitators of this process, Ms. Natalia Mahalo, who represents Caritas Coimbra, based in Portugal and also is a consortium partner of PlatformUptake.eu project, will share some of the main outcomes of PlatformUptake.eu project. The webinar will continue with a contribution by Santa Casa de Misericórdia de Amor, I hope I spelled the name correctly, Portugal, on the PHARA-ON project in the case of an open platform, including the challenges and implementing the requirements for its successful uptake. In the second half of the webinar, our guest from the company Arnora Oy with a seat in Finland will demonstrate the experiences and lessons learned of the Finnish healthcare cluster on driving product market fit through pilots. Please feel free to ask questions anytime in the chat option in the right below corner. At the end of the webinar, we'll have a short discussion round in which you can also ask questions directly to the presenters. All right, so that being said, let's move to the more interesting part of our today's webinar. Carina, would you like to share your presentation?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Alexander, and good morning to everyone. So let me see if I can share.
Perfect, it's working.
Please let me know if you can see it and it's going well.
It looks really nice, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I think that I don't see any of you, so please, if you find any problem in the presentation, just let me know so that I can go back. Thank you so much, Alexander, for the invitation to Natalia, to the project. It has been a pleasure to follow the achievements that you have been proceeding with, and to understand that you also want to go a bit further and try to promote that open platforms and other digital technologies can be further used and upscaled around Europe. Well, what you asked me to discuss a bit today was about challenges, needs, and requirements a bit from the end user side. And I would like to start with this picture of the patient journey. This is a very interesting approach about digital health on how do we see things if we are, well, either a researcher or perhaps a technical provider, and we have a lot of different steps and points to go through to be able to provide some kind of digital solution. However, for the citizen or the patient, the idea is that things should be quite simple. There's an issue that can arise in their lives and for which they need support, and the overall support provided by an open platform or by one of the apps that can be hosted there should lead simply and smoothly to an end process. Very often, as we know, this is not this simple, but this is for sure how we should be working for. So what can be the role of open platforms in this, and in this sense to connect also to the Platform Uptake project and the very nice online course that he provided to citizens in general in this relation. Well, probably we need to start a little bit before the platform is already available, and try to understand if in fact digital tools are being used in active and healthy aging or in active and healthy living as a whole. And the truth is that to use this kind of support, we still have some steps to go through. And one of them is, of course, digital literacy, digital use, digital access. So in fact, we already have a lot of the young generation. The last data suggested 98% of the younger citizens are using internet and digital tools. But the truth is that this is still much lower for older people, and open platforms for active and healthy aging are for sure very much targeted to this age group. So if we look, for example, in terms of distribution by countries, then we would understand that in our case, for example, of Portugal, we still only have around 40% of people using the internet or digital tools. And the fact is that if we don't find some way to overpass this, then whatever support is available through open platforms won't reach the person at the end, which is, of course, our main aim. So this is something that needs to be worked together with the solutions that are proposed, or the tools, the services, the products, if we really want to impact on society. And use of internet or use of digital tools or technologies is not the only factor. If we go through this Eurostat data that was organized by UNES, we see that there are a number of other interesting factors to address. For example, if you live in a rural area, you use for sure much less digital tools than in cities. If you have lower incomes, and for example, in this case, the difference is quite relevant when you go for a first quartile income to a fourth one. So if you have a lower income, for sure you also use less digital tools. And we see that if you are retired or unemployed, this also applies. So if we want to have an open platform that provides services to people in general, and especially older people, we need to acknowledge all of these factors and try to work around them. Because, well, especially after the pandemic, we can all agree that digital tools are not relevant, but essential, so that we can provide better care, and that somehow we can promote a healthier living to everyone. But there are still a number of challenges that are in need of being addressed. Digital skills are for sure something related to what I was presenting, but also health literacy and well, overall literacy in general, inequalities in access. And of course, all that goes around not only the citizen himself, but the environments where he lives and the health and care system. So we need better digital infrastructures and also the housing around it. And we need to have integrated pathways for providing health and care with good, reliable and accessible data around it. And of course, I think one of the things we are discussing today, which is funding solutions that are long-term and not just project related, and business models that allow these open platform services to be provided for a long period. Well, if we want to be proactive around this, then I would say that there are for sure some key policy measures or societal measures that we can try to promote. On one side, to focus on a more health and well-being value-based approach, that is to try to coordinate the services that are provided, because for sure, for these platforms to be used, we need that all of the caregivers, professionals, and community around citizens are coordinated to support the use of these platforms. And for this, the professionals need an education that also promotes this. This is for sure still a hindering factor for the use of digital tools. Then, of course, also the public authorities, the health and social care authorities need to be focused on a different and more holistic perspective on how health and care can be provided, and look at the services that can be delivered through these open platforms as one part into a different puzzle of a holistic health and care provision. For this, of course, caregivers, formal and informal, need to be trained, and joint sustainable business cases need to be delivered through putting together governments, insurance companies, investors, the ICT companies, and all of the relevant actors, so that things can work in place. This is an issue, and I would say probably one of the main aspects that we have been trying to discuss in Net4H Friendly, which is an international network currently gathering 51 countries. And this is why, for sure, platform uptake is of quite an interest into this discussion. If I can highlight maybe two specific issues that we think could support the promotion of the open platforms for the future. One, I already presented it before, which is to have a more integrated and holistic approach on the development of people. So not focusing only on providing tools to support older adults, but to try to promote from the beginning, that means from childhood, products, services, and overall a community that supports active and healthy living and not just aging. And that can represent some kind of product or service that accompanies people through the age course. And this for sure will be much more inclusive and will probably be more supportive of having the use of these digital tools at an older age if you start doing it earlier. For this, of course, we need to have more skills, more literacy. We need to promote this through different age courses, and social and healthcare organizations are very important to ensure this. At the same time, perhaps different things can be done. For example, we can use influencers, we can use television, and other aspects different than just the digital ones to promote a broader use of technologies. This is still perhaps not done enough. And to finalize, one of the main aspects that we should ensure is that the ICT tools can guarantee a better community participation. That is, we don't want at all to promote digital health or digital active and healthy aging, and with this, increase isolation. The idea is exactly the opposite, is that you can be part of an online community, but that this also brings you to a personal community. And for this, we need to acknowledge that we still have a lot of issues in access to digital, and that policy making still needs to be more aligned with these needs. At the end, we need to also understand if we are already promoting a society in which all of us will be tech savvy and more literate to be able to navigate in this digital world, or if we should already be investing in this and not only in older ages. This is for sure a holistic approach, as I was mentioning before, and we need to consider how to adapt and personalize all of these platforms, environments, technologies in a way that are useful for citizens at all ages. Because at the end, it's all about people. We need to ensure that they can grasp the digital revolution in a positive way. And again, we still have so many challenges to be able to ensure this. This is why I'm very positive that during this discussion and with the colleagues that will be presenting after me, we will have for sure a lot of these challenges addressed, and good value propositions to see how this can be implemented in place. So thank you. I understand that questions would be in the Q&A session after all of the presenters. Nevertheless, I'm happy to answer to anything that may be needed now.
Thank you, Karina, for the really nice and informative presentation. I totally agree with you that the challenges is not only age-related, but also have some socioeconomic and cultural aspects. So this needs to be taken under consideration in the design of digital technology. All right, so we move forward with the next really nice presentation carried out by Natalia, who will share some important outcomes of our great project. Natalia, please feel free to share your presentation.
Hello, everybody. So good morning, and thank you for being here today. And thank you also, Alexander, for the invitation to this webinar and to the possibility to talk a little bit about our project and the achievements and results that we gathered. So my name is Natalia Machado. I'm project coordinator at Caritas Coimbra. We are an end user organization, and we have been part of the Platform Uptake project. So basically, just a brief overview of our project. The Platform Uptake is an action to coordinate and support the European Commission for digital platforms, supporting active and healthy aging. So, as you know, and as already mentioned by Karina, aging presents one of the greatest socioeconomic challenges of the 21st century. Reacting to the demographic shifts and age in general and guaranteeing the availability of the required structuring, the European Union has devoted a high level of resources to ICT projects in the field of active and healthy aging. So over the past decade, many open platforms and solutions have been developed and tested to use innovative technologies to help older citizens live independently in their homes as long as possible. This open platform should support older people in the main problems that have been arising with this demographic increase. At the same sense, these platforms are answered to with the lack of the caregivers due to the exponential increase of the older people. And this technology must be a support tool. And the idea that we want to collaborate and in support of Karina said also, the objective of these technologies is not to replace the personal contact, but to provide the user a great autonomy and real answer their requirements and needs in this new age and these new possibilities. So our project, the Platform Uptake, intended to analyze and describe the ecosystem of existing open services platforms for various user groups, promoting synergies between the respective networks and related projects in these domains. The project was financed by the European Union Age 2020 program, and is being developed by a consortium made up of 20 entities, including Caritas Coimbra. So basically our project will end at the end of this month, but our objective is to continue working on that and continue discussing this so important topic. So here, through I have a brief view of all the achievements that we have been working through this project. Basically, we have, through the creation of an online information hub, the project proposed to assess the societal impact of existing platforms, create monitoring and evaluation toolkits, collect successful user stories and best practices, promote interoperability, and define common guidelines for the large-scale uptake of these platforms. So here we have a base overview. I will explain better in the next slides, but in summary, we have our hub, that is a feature information on existing open platforms and solutions for active and healthy aging and support the uptake. We have the tools to support open platforms providers and end users to self-evaluate the uptake of existing open platforms. We have our MOOC, that is a training tool for learners to understand the use of open platforms, their benefits, and how to integrate them in their organizations. The project has also organized matchmaking events and interviews with the open platforms providers. Here we have an overview of our Open Information Hub. That is an online resource. You can find it online in our website. This hub constitutes a lively space where stakeholders can gain an overview of the ecosystem of open platforms and showcase their contribution. And it provides an overview of the existing platforms mapped, monitored, and analyzed by the project, includes the outcomes of analysis and knowledge exchange, support toolkits, and best practices and guidelines. So here, as you can see, we have the homepage. You can find this online. The homepage of the hub represents a major gateway to the collection of knowledge, insights, and uptake guidelines established by the project consortium. The main structure of this hub is consisting of this navigation bar with buttons and drop-down menus, and links to the main categories include some elements such as cards and links to internal sources. We have one drop-down that includes a link to the registration area for the monitoring and self-evaluation tools and for the MOOC. The central place on the home page is possible to see and is reversed for the slider comprising project-related images and text. And we also have a part exclusively to the AHA expert voices with valuable inputs for the project's stakeholders. And you can also find this here, and also some 3 points that it's coming soon. At the end of the project, you can find a Smart Online Advisor, gaps and innovation needs, and pilots and implementation map. Also in this slide, you can see other features in the hub, being a possibility to find the information gathered by the project in an easy way. Besides the hub, we have the tools. The tools allows the platform's providers to assess and evaluation information about their platform and its competing products in various times of periods. It enables them to visualize different KPIs related to the platform development, usage, and community uptake, monitor their communities, how they are using the platform, and how successful they are in developing other effective solutions based on it. Track their overall status and impact over time, understand their progresses, and identify areas for improvement. Additionally, the tool allows any other user to visualize the available information in a per platform or comparative manner. But this tool is not addressed only for the providers, but it also addressed to the developers. So it's also possible who use the open platforms for creating solutions. So this tool can help technology developers to decide which platforms are most appropriate for their scopes by allowing them to map their requirements, to easily compare the platforms across key metrics and different time periods based on their needs, to monitor the development of their solutions and evaluate their progresses. So basically, you can find all these online, and this tool is created for you. It's an invitation to learn better in the website. Also, a very interactive training program, or it means our MOOC, a massive open online course. This MOOC was created with the objective to responding to the numerous critical voices that have been raising due to the persisting fragmentation of the active and health aging market and the lack of interoperability of the various solutions deployed or difficult with the large-scale uptake of the platforms. So basically, the objective when we did this MOOC, this training, was to raise awareness in the adoption of open platforms, and it was made for all end users. So basically, if you are a primary or secondary end user, an authority, a facilitator, you can find in an easy way the information about what is, how to find, how to use, and select an open platform. The MOOC is openly accessible and will remain openly available in our Open Information Hub for other stakeholders. In that sense, as I said, the MOOC is an instrument to explain the ecosystem to newcomers, introducing this concept of open services platforms, the existing state of art, the offered services, how users can get started, how that can make good use of the services, track their progresses, and finally roll out successful solutions. After the conclusion of the MOOC, it is issued a badge. So here, one more time, I invite you to all check this information, and at the end, you can have your badge. As part, also our project was a tool, a future-should network. So basically, as part of the knowledge exchange and analysis of the ecosystem of open platforms, the project conducted workshops and webinars with a broad range of stakeholders across Europe, including the perspective of end users involved in this environment. Caritas Coimbra, for example, is an end user organization and have been participating in a lot of these workshops and webinars in order to give a voice of the people that it's the target of these open platforms, the end users. So basically, with these matchmaking events, our aim was to provide valuable input for development and evolution of future platforms in the field. And the events seek to collect, assess, and present best practices and the stories for a successful uptake of exploitation of existing platforms and by all stakeholders involved. So in our website, you can also find the other events and watching them all. If you are interested, you can watch there. And lastly, but not least, you can also find, it was one part of our job, find some interviews with the PHARA experts. We have 34 videos considering the different perspectives and fields. Here you can see the videos that are divided into platforms, persons talking about some of open platforms that are already in the market, the part of research, innovation, and promotion, and at the end, project events. Just to finalize, for sure, during the project, we have found several challenges and gaps. There is a lot to do and improve in this field. And as you can notice with this brief presentation, the project created many different outputs, and our aim was to ensure that the gathered findings will lead to a further impact beyond of the end of the project. So basically, our idea is not to end here, is to continue working on this area and continue work with you in a network to be possible to continue to discuss this. Besides that, the provided insights and on other gaps and innovation needs, as well as the established recommendations, will allow us, the consortium partners, and also the external stakeholders to establish further researcher, development, and innovation projects that can be more precisely targeted to those issues of the domain, which are the most impressive. So basically, we will continue to doing this, to monitor these events and opportunities and seeking for relevant exploitable outcomes. So thank you all. As it was mentioned, the questions will be later, but also invite Alexander to add something else if I skip something. But thank you for being here, and I am available for any questions.
Thank you, Natalia, for the really nicely provided overview of our project. And as Natalia mentioned, we'll continue collecting contacts from the field and continue the knowledge exchange, which we already initiated. So feel free to visit our Open Information Hub and check the presentations of the participants from the matchmaking events and previous webinars. There are a lot of interesting organizations that you can get in touch. If you need the contact of a particular person, please feel free to reach out to us. We will gladly facilitate the contact with this organization to support the upscale of your solutions and technologies. All right, so let's move to the next very interesting presentation, which will be conducted by Mariana from PHARA-ON project. PHARA-ON project is a really amazing initiative, but I'll let Mariana mention some interesting facts about it. Mariana, please feel free to share your presentation.
Good morning.
Good morning. Yes.
I do have some problems with microphones sometimes, so do tell me if you don't hear me as well. So good morning, everyone, and thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. So I will be then sharing my screen. Just 1 second. Okay. Can you see it already? Okay, I do hope you can see it because I can see I can see the reactions.
Mm-hmm. Can you? Yes, perfect.
Okay, right. Okay, so let's start this then. So just for a very quick presentation, my name is Mariana Camacho and I'm a social innovation consultant. And just to put us in the scope of this, Santa Casa da Misericórdia da Amadora is a NGO, and we provide services to around 6,000 people each day. 600 of which are older adults, just to explain our relevance in this project. And our services are in 4 main areas, which are education, social, health, and 3rd and 4th age, because our mean age of our users is over 85 years old. So apart from this, I will then give you some information on PHARA-ON. So as we know, the European society is aging very quickly, and this increases the need for tools that improve the quality of life, that improve the independence and the overall health of older adults. So our idea is to have tools also that improve the delivery of personalized health and social care, as we are an NGO that provides all those services. And advanced ICT solutions can indeed combine technologies that allow for this multidisciplinary care to be addressed, but these solutions that are available as of now are very fragmented and their scope is limited. So there are indeed solutions, but they either don't cover all the needed requirements or they aren't sufficiently user-friendly, etc. So as such, what PHARA-ON aims overall is to make smart and active living for Europeans' aging population a reality. How? Through a set of integrated and highly customizable open platforms that have services, that have devices and tools aggregated. And to do this, our key design principles to pursue are, of course, data privacy, cybersecurity, interoperability, and openness, which of course we won't be going too deeply into because we are not technological partners, but we will be indeed testing these platforms and supporting in the validation, and we have been doing this for the project. So concluding this, our idea is to build upon mature and existing state-of-the-art platforms and technologies, and more than that, to make them interoperable, so to make the PHARA-ON an ecosystem with standardized platforms that allow for other services to be aggregated as we go. So assuring by design the data privacy, cybersecurity, interoperability, and openness. There's also the two open calls, which will allow us to complement all the possible gaps, either through technologies that didn't sufficiently meet the requirements that we have, or due to technologies that we no longer had access to. So our idea is to have these open calls. We are currently waiting on the results from one of these, because of one of the technologies we're currently missing from our pilot scenario, let's call it. And to do all of this, we are using a user-centric and method-like approach for the acceptability, and impact assessment. So we are involving our end users in the pre-validation, in the large-scale pilots that will be deployed now, but I will go through this later on. So to reach these goals, we aim to identify, implement, demonstrate, ensure, validate, and involve. So identify how the current interoperability between the platforms and the solutions from the partners and the solutions from the third parties are going, if there's this interoperability, if it needs to be further developed, and this has been developed as we go. As I mentioned, we have an open call finishing right now, so there are of course third parties that will need to be involved. Just in the identifying, also mentioning that there's been this very interesting tool that our technological partners have been developing, which is a developer's handbook, which is a one-stop shop, let's call, to support in the interoperability of these third parties that come to the project later on. So implement personalized analytics that provide older adults and the caregivers with pertinent physical and mental health, as well as well-being information, to demonstrate the feasibility of the platform, of the integration of the platforms with existing systems. And in this regard, of course, this also has a very context-driven approach, because the intelligent transport and mobility, energy optimization, of course, this depends on the services and on the level of, let's call it, how digital the services are at local, regional, and national level. So, of course, this will change from place to place. But also the aim is to demonstrate that it is an interesting to start investing more in, of course, and this will, of course, emphasize that need. So ensure user-friendly in human-computer interaction modes. So when we have older adults, as been mentioned before, as Karina mentioned earlier on, Portugal has very, very low digital literacy levels. So our older adults are not very used, don't have a lot of contact, and they don't have a lot of ICT skills. So we did, throughout the pre-validation sessions, we aim to make the solutions as user-friendly as possible, to make sure the user interface was readable, that they knew, and that everything was intuitive, most of all. Apart from that, also validate the platforms at an early stage, so in order that we can provide useful feedback to the partners, so they can develop these platforms in these technologies in a demand-driven way, so make sure they're actually meeting the needs and not thinking they know what the needs are. In this regard, of course, the user approach, user-centered approach, and involve new stakeholders and their technologies, products, services in different ecosystems through the launch of open calls. So, as I mentioned previously, there might be some gaps, there could be some gaps, and these open calls allow for other services to be aggregated to the platforms. And of course, the idea is for later on having a platform that actually, the main goal of PHARA-ON would be to actually have platforms that later on could also be more and more aggregated, and that everybody could have access to all the services from all the different pilots. Of course, the feasibility of this with the scale that we are at is still being studied. I did not mention earlier, but we are 42 partners in the project. And this is an overview of the different pilots. So I won't go too deeply in this, just to tell you that in total, we will be involving 3,400 people in all the pilot sites for these large-scale pilots. And the pilot sites are in Italy, in Tuscany and Apulia, in the Netherlands, in Slovenia, in Portugal, we have Coimbra and Amadora, and Andalusia and Murcia in Spain as well. And these are the overall PHARA-ON challenges, just to bring you some of the unmet needs that we identified, which were the approach and behavior of elderly towards technological devices, as been mentioned. Of course, there are a lot of differences, like the case of the Netherlands. The older adult participants in the Netherlands have a completely different level of digital skills from those in Portugal, for example, or in Spain. Health status definition and its progress over time. So in a preventive measure, making sure we aren't reacting, but we are acting with preventive measures, and we can actually measure this progress of the health status. So non-intrusive monitoring and alarm triggering, promote social cohesion, which is one of our challenges. I will go further on, talk about that. Define personalized care plan, reduce isolation and loneliness, promote accessibility and the provision of proximity services, promote capacity building, indoor environmental quality, and support to caregivers towards more efficient personalized care services. So some of the pilots will be testing some common technologies and have been testing common technologies, but the challenges that are being faced aren't exactly the same. So just to show you then how this plays out in our case, you can see the technologies here in the difference. This is the technologies, the platforms is just an overview of let's say the PHARA-ON ecosystem. So countries with the technologies, the services, the devices that are aggregated, and the national platforms all connected into the main platform. And how have we been testing and validating all these ecosystems? Through co-creation and agile methodology. So we have been involving all the stakeholders in the designing of the products and the services, and on the testing and on the validation. And this has been conducted in a 2 stages validation. The pre-validation, which were actually 2 phases, and it allowed us to provide feedback to the technological partners, to test the interoperability and everything that we needed to make a status of development. And of course, there are also the 2 open calls mentioned previously for any gaps that could be assessed throughout this validation, or if any of the technologies prove to not be sufficient to meet fully a requirement. So going a bit more specifically into our Portuguese pilot, just to give you some information, our objective is to develop and implement citizen-focused solutions, integrated care and planning, integrated infrastructures and processes, and knowledge sharing. So focusing the relationship between community, environment, and the people living in them. So have the people actually be part of the community and use the services that they have in them, and fight the isolation that they are currently in. So these are our 2 pilot sites, the one from Santa Casa da Misericórdia Formadora and Caritas Diocesana de Coimbra. And the identified challenges that we had were these 4. So the lack of cohesion with community and the different actors, the increased isolation and loneliness of the older adults. In our case, we have been doing the testing and the validation in our own care services. So these are older adults that are especially vulnerable and especially isolated, and would, of course, really, really benefit from having more social cohesion. And of course, also the next challenges, which is to have access to proximity services through the use of IT platforms. So people that are alone at home can, of course, benefit the most from ICT solutions. And the last one, reduce capacity and awareness on environmental issues. I won't go through too long on this because this one is actually exclusive to Caritas. So probably Natalia would be better suited to answer this. If you have any questions, you may ask her at the end, maybe. So how do these actually translate into implementation? The promoting the social cohesion, the reducing of isolation and loneliness, the promoting of accessibility and provision of services and of capacity building. We have three main actions, which are participating in community life, lifelong learning, and ensuring a safe and comfortable environment. These were the 3 main topics that we found could answer the needs that we had the most. And how do this translate into something? So participating in community life, it will have the more social networking and communication aspects. It will have the proximity volunteering. We actually have already volunteers, but this will allow us to have them at a more constant, more frequent, and easier contact with the older adults they are indeed supporting. The lifelong learning, the idea is to have a carer campus. So in a self-care and in a capacitation of both the older adults and the formal and informal caregivers. And this will be a B-learning platform. The idea was to be a B-learning platform. It has to be slightly changed due to technological issues. And lastly, it's ensuring a safe and comfortable environment. This one is actually still in hiatus because it is waiting on the results from the open call. We are waiting for the MODIC solution. So in this way, we were trying to aggregate the most needed requirements, which were to have our older adults involved in the community, to fight their isolation, to make sure they have access to the services that they have in the community, because many times there are services, but they either don't have, they aren't sufficiently coordinated among themselves, they don't have enough communication, and in this way people don't have access to them. And the lifelong learning, because of course when we are talking about active and healthy aging, we want the people themselves to be able to take care of themselves and to live longer and with quality. And lastly, of course, ensuring a safe and comfortable environment, because our older adults are at home and we want them to, of course, be safe. So I won't read through all of this, and sorry that there is so much text, but just to tell you that our idea is to have an integrated approach. As an NGO that provides both social and health care, we aim to have an integrated care approach and a multidisciplinary approach. So have a person-centered care, Of course, our idea is always to focus on the person, and in SCMA we actually have been developing the integrated and person-centered model, which is a model that aims to put the person at the center of the intervention, and more than just respecting the person's needs, we also aim to respect the person's limits, expectations, and what they actually want. And this made all the difference in the way we actually develop all the approach. So, and this is something that is especially relevant, and we have been bringing this model in all the projects that we participate in, because the reason why so many projects work is because we aren't actually trying to meet the needs that people have. We are thinking we know which needs those are. So to make sure the implementation and the impact is the most, we have to make sure we are actually answering the needed requirements. So apart from everything else that has been talked, our aim is also to have compassionate cities. So when we talk about compassionate cities, we talk about cities that respect everybody and that are inclusive to all different stakeholders. So in this way, making the process of phaging starts from very early on, and making sure our cities have all the resources and are well coordinated to start meeting the needs as the age goes on. And apart from that, I will jump to the impact assurance, because I have mentioned most of those topics before. So to have this impact assurance and to make sure those goals are actually met, of course, we will feed on good practices and on the assessment of theirs, and outside of the consortium, of course, involving stakeholders. This is, of course, the main focus on the design creation, having evidence-based value proposition. Of course, the idea is also to make sure these services will be cost efficient, and because in our case in Portugal, most of our older adults do have very, very low pensions, so we do want some solutions that can actually take advantage of. And of course, making sure the idea of the project is replicable and scalable, because the idea is to, of course, incentive the creation of more and more of these platforms and of more of these services, innovative and related to third age. And the impact assurance goals of the project, of course, the measures that will be of course evaluated will be the platform interoperability, so the level of interoperability that we managed to reach by the end of the project, the ecosystem evolution, so how much the ecosystem that we are creating manages to evolve, and of course this is related to the interoperability, of course, the sustainability of the health systems. So also by adding these technological solutions in systems, the idea is also to make health systems more efficient and more cost efficient as well, of course, and in a, let's call, in a more nano spectrum, let's call, also to make not only the health systems better, but to make the health and social care provision better. So also capacitating our professionals, making sure our professionals have access to tools that allow them to provide better care, etc. Of course, the quality of life, the fourth KPI, the competitiveness of the EU industry. So, of course, the idea is to create a good platform with good services and making sure that these more platforms grow and makes more entities want to invest in platforms, because this is, of course, of added value, and that's what we are trying to, of course, validate and assess. And in the end, awareness raising among industry, health, and decision makers. Awareness raising in the sense that these type of solutions have added value, they are helpful, and this is the awareness raising that we need to do to make sure we have more of these types of initiatives. And local KPI, so these are the main things that we will be assessing: the quality of life, so quality of life, and loneliness. This user's acceptance that has been measured in the pre-validation and will be measured also in the pilot. So satisfaction, easiness to use, utility, perceived safeness, dropout rate, cost effectiveness, of course, this is self-explanatory, and the innovation, so number of jobs that these new systems and services might create, the timing for training end user, timing for training carers, and technology adoption. Of course, these three last ones are essential because, of course, we have to have the training so the technology can be adopted, and we need the technology to be adopted to actually have impact and to actually meet our goals. And just finishing, this is the innovation expected impact that we have. So going very generally, having bottom-up initiatives that support regional, national, and European policies and funds. So making sure that the initiatives are more local, because more and more we're starting to realize the requirements are very specific, but at the same time, it's also good to find solutions that are feasible for different stakeholders. And increase the number of services in the applications, making sure also to increase the number of platforms and of activities that are related to these sustainable ecosystems and platforms, and validating the number of validations and of platforms and sustainability of models like this of platforms. And then, of course, to have increased competitiveness on the ICT industry in regards to interoperability, of course, because more and more the idea is to prove that these platforms are feasible, but of course there are all the privacy, security, vulnerability worries to take into account, and of course these have to be very well addressed, and it is always an issue when we are testing with so many people how to assure their privacy and that all ethical aspects are being respected. And that's one of the main issues, I would say. The most complicated part is making sure all this information is collected, all this data is circulating, but respecting all these questions of privacy, security, vulnerability, liability, etc. And well, I don't know, the questions and answers, I suppose, will be later on. And if there's anything else that we can then answer, do let me know. I think this slide for today is very much.
Thank you.
So I do
Thank you very much, Mariana, for the really informative presentation. So let's move to the second half of our webinar, in which there will be some really interesting insights shared by the healthtech cluster and in Finland, and really interested to learn more on their experiences with piloting and testing solutions in healthcare and active and healthy aging.
Okay, hello everyone. Can you hear me and see our picture?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Okay, let's see. There. Nice to meet you all. My name is Jukka Niiranen, and I'm representing Arnora Oy. Arnora is a high technology ICT and health technology consulting company, but I always want to say that let's not speak about consulting and speak about actual doing. So what we do, we actually were located in southeastern Finland, and we operate basically Europe-wide as our customers require. We focus on 4 main issues. First of all, and for today's topic, the most importantly, we focus on facilitating innovation. So our customers are usually companies and in some cases also public organizations, but mainly companies who have innovations and new product solution ideas that are looking to enter the markets at some point. We have been working with ICT sector and high technology sector for the past 20-25 years already, and the health technology is our, let's say, latest addition, and it seems to be growing rather fast. So we have raised the nurturing health tech as our let's say second leg, and we see ourselves as a player between the companies and living labs, test beds, and the health sector in general. So we have identified that the problem with the cooperation in many times is due to difficulties in understanding the wording, in understanding the phrases and practices. So we act as a catalyst and interpreter between these actors. We speak both business and doctor languages. Then naturally, we are business consultants from our background, so business development is one of our main things we do. Mostly there, our customers are growth companies in several domains, as well as public sector organizations. We help many cities and municipalities and such to build new projects and push them forwards and achieve the goals. The fourth thing, the innovation village, that's practically not too interesting today, but it's just good to mention. We have this cooperation community here in Lappeenranta, where our headquarters are, and we try to create a inspirational international working community for especially for those small ICT health tech companies who are looking to grow up, and they can definitely benefit from working together with other companies. Then a few words about Finnish health, should we say, market. And this is the health expenditure from the past 20 years, basically. And main thing here is to understand that as everywhere, the costs are rising all the time. So the public sector has a huge need to find new technological solutions and implement them into use to lower the costs and to be able to produce the services to the public. One very important thing to know about Finnish market, especially just now, is that the health system is going through a major change. Previously, the health services were provided by municipalities and cities. In some areas, these municipalities and cities formed these smaller districts, but still the financing for all work was coming, or for the basic healthcare was coming from the municipalities. We are just in the middle of the transitional phase, and at the beginning of 2023, so next year, the structure will change so that we have these larger health districts, and the financing is coming directly from the government. So the role of the municipalities will basically disappear from the early next year. But what this actually means is that today, yesterday, 2 months ago, and 3 months forwards, it's really difficult to sell anything to public sector because everything is going through these major changes. This one is here because we are speaking about aging population, and as we can see, the home care and housing services do grow in unbelievable pace at the moment. Even from 2018 to 2019, there's been a huge jump. These are actually the latest statistics I was able to find for today. When we are talking about the Finnish health tech market and potentially companies looking business opportunities in this area, there are several very interesting, let's say, starting points for everyone to familiarize themselves with. There are these industry associations, then there are these non-profit associations working in the health industry. I'm not going into any details today regarding this, but if you are interested, you can easily find the information from the internet, or we are happy to help you. Arnora, of course, is building our own innovation and company network. Then we have several test beds in different parts of the country. Business Finland is very much a core player in business development and product development side, and when we are talking about getting technologies into markets, they have lots of good financing instruments available. Then of course these Clever Health networks and SLAS, which probably everybody knows, those are places for the companies to put their message forward. Here is few words about what Arnora actually does, and I was thinking that I'll discuss this through a few examples, because it's always better or easier to understand that way. So for example, we have had cases where high-tech entrepreneurs outside of EU area have been looking to build a business in EU / in our case in Finland, and to do that they needed these eligibility statements for the migration, for example. So our job was to help them with creation of those and to guide them through the required process. Then we have worked with several startup companies who have been looking for testing, for example, in nursing homes or home care. And in these cases, our work has been focused on defining the solution so that the testing partner is able to understand it, and then again work with the companies to bring the right features for the testing so that everybody can benefit from the cooperation, and of course matchmaking of the companies and the healthcare side. So basically test beds is always a key here. We have been involved in project planning of EU Horizon projects for companies, making the definitions, again matchmaking the companies with suitable partners, for example. One which is not like health tech, but it's more like an ICT case. We had recently one hotel, restaurant, catering area company who had been working in their own area, own business area for decades, and due to Corona situation, they found themselves in a situation that they are lacking customers, they are lacking visitors, they need to do something, they want to streamline their own business and at the same time diversify their own business towards new areas, and in this case it was an ICT solution, so it was very natural place for us also to help them with the planning of the project and prioritization. Also, we have been working with public organization, as I mentioned. For example, we have created several Baltic Sea region projects, and in these cases we've been focusing on partner collection, organizing of visits between partners, project definitions, and actual writing of the project plans. Then before I give the floor to our partners and customers from Hoivita and Confienta, I'll just give you one quick heads up about our upcoming new project. We are starting this one-stop funnel project together with Aarhus municipality from Denmark and Västerbotten region in Sweden. And the project, which lasts for the upcoming 3 years, is financed by Nordic Innovation. And what we are doing is that we are developing a funnel type of a tool that will help health tech companies to refine their offerings so that they are or they can enter the actual product solution testing with test beds and living labs, because that, as I told earlier, we have been working on this area, and we have noticed that there's problems with the language, there's problems with the communication, there's problems with the features that the companies want to test, while the living labs and test beds might actually want to test the solution for some completely other reason. So this new funnel type of a solution we are building up with Aarhus and Västerbotten, it's supposed to help the companies turn their solutions into such things that can actually be first of all tested, and after that, of course, sold. Because from our point of view, the main goal for work is always to make the company's solution something that is both sellable and purchasable. And finally, we have also been involved in Horizon Eurostar projects, and if you are looking for partners from different EU countries, please do call us, and if it's not Arnora, I'm sure that we can find a suitable partner company for your upcoming projects. So thank you. That's what Arnora does, and from both Arnora Innovation Village and our network, I will give the floor to Mr. Abhishek Jayaprakash, and he is the CEO of Hoivita. So, Abhi, go ahead.
All right. Hey everyone, I'm Abhishek Jayaprakash. I'm the CEO of Hoivita. We are a health tech company that makes remote health monitoring solutions to the elderly B2B target sector. Hoivita was born of the merger between two companies, Henkaus and Visratio, both health tech companies based in the Lappeenranta region. So what is Hoivita? We are all about presenting the right information at the right time, and how we do it is by providing minimally invasive, non-contact devices, by installing these devices at our customers' sites, and then providing insights to the caregivers so that they can take better care of their patients. And of course, the output of our devices are available to the end users in 3 formats. One is our minimalistic UI. The second one is their UIs or their APIs, where all the output is easily transferable. And the third one is an approach where it's an alerts-only approach. So this is especially useful for smaller healthcare providers where they do not have the time to say, log into a system, or they do not have a system of their own to log into. So in that case, we operate only on an alert-based system where they receive the alerts based on whatever is configured for their specific need. Coming to the topic of today's discussion, I will briefly take you through the common knowledge that's available some of the reasons as to how and why we decided to get into the medtech space, and also the lessons we've learned. In terms of common knowledge, the CE medical device certification is broadly classified into 3 types: Class 1, Class 2, and Class 3. Class 1 being a low to moderate risk category, Class 2 being a moderate to high risk, and the 3 being an extremely high risk category. And also, from May last year, the EU has transitioned from the MDD to MDR. So from a medical device directive to a medical device regulation. And what it means is the test that you have to undergo to acquire these certification has changed quite a bit depending on what is your medical product, and also if that has a software component to it. When it comes to, again, this whole certification, I mean, I think some of us here are already aware of what these contain, but for the purpose of taking you through it, it contains of the technical documentation, the EMC tests, and again, depending on the category of the risk, there's clinical trials. So technical documents is all about presenting your device, its specifications, its intended usage, who is supposed to use it, how is it supposed to be used, the risks of using the device, how we as manufacturers have mitigated those risks. All those information is present on the technical documents. Next is the EMC test, or the electromagnetic compatibility, how your medical device reacts with its environment, or how friendly it is to other electronic devices, or is it safe to operate in the realm of other electronic devices. And the third one is, of course, clinical trials. Depending on your severity and depending on what you have to offer, your device may have to undergo clinical trials. And in some cases, it's also possible that you can utilize an already existing device on the market as a benchmark and then use their studies. But that's also a possibility, but then depending on the use case, you may have to perform that. Next on the list is notified bodies. I think already when it comes to technical documents, the EMC tests and the clinical trials, it is possible for the company to have its own resource dedicated to this, or in most cases, it is usually outsourced. And notified body is an organization available in every country here in Europe, and some of them are also present abroad, which is also recognized by the European Union to help you through this process of either getting it done and helping you in certain aspects. And depending on your risk class in certain categories, going through your technical documents. In terms of time frame, it can take anywhere between 3 to 18 months, depending on what the product is and what the severity level is. At least from last year, since this transition from MDD to MDR has happened, the notified bodies have a wait list of sometimes even 9 to 12 months. So that's something that we have to keep in mind if you want to go ahead with this. And again, coming to the cost, it's again on a case-by-case basis, but it can easily go anywhere from 30,000 euros to about 100K, depending on what you want, what is required. And of course, if the clinical trials is required, you have to get the ethical committee approvals, and that has to be taken into account before deciding if that is to be done or not. Coming to how and why we did it, I think one of the first product was this respimeter that you see, the little black box that you see on the screens here. And when we made this respimeter, it was around the time of the first wave of Corona that hit Finland. And of course, we approached one of Finland's largest healthcare provider, and the first question they asked was our medical device certification. Hence, we went back to the drawing board and decided to get our certification, by just based on their inputs. Coming to the lessons we learned, I think this first question is probably the most question that we all have to answer. Do we really, really need a medical device certification, or would a regular CE electronic certification be enough for the purpose and the intended use? Of course, this is something that as founders or as business heads that we have to decide, but going down the medical route as a startup has both its pros and cons. The intended use is all about how the device is going to be used. As startups and as founders, we want our device to be used in a wide range of spectrum, but the intended use is used or is meant so that the device can only be used in a particular setting. Or if you claim many things, you have to be able to prove those many things. And in that way, once the intended use is stated in your technical documents, the device in the medical format can only be used within that setting. Third point is to know your notified bodies. If you have decided that you really need a medical device certification, it is better to get in touch either with your notified bodies or someone who has gone through the process, so that they'll be at a stage to better guide you through this process and help you get in touch. Because as mentioned, post this transition from MDD to MDR, the timeframes are relatively long, so that's something you want, and it's better to have them early on in your product development phase rather than much later on, as it was in our case. Also, one of the downsides of already being into your product development and then going into your device certification is any changes that goes into the device, either be it its appearance, be it its color, be it its intended use, all has to be documented in the technical documents. And another thing is, if you change the way your device looks or the enclosure it's in, if it's of a different dimension, it may be subject to performing your EMC tests again. So this is a few very important points that we have to keep in mind before actually deciding if we want to go into a medical or to get a medical device certification. Pre-EMC tests. So if you already are into your product development phase and you already have a more or less ready product, I would highly recommend you getting these pre-EMC tests done. So basically they run through similar tests as what's performed in an actual EMC test, but then you will be able to see if your device has passed that EMC test or no. And in our case, of course, since we were already very well into our product development, or we had our product more or less ready, when we didn't make it through our first time, we were looking for partners who could help us out. And of course, Arnora was able to guide us in that sense to who could at least help us out to identify why our device was failing these tests. So I would highly recommend doing these pre-EMC tests if you are already into your product development and then you have decided to go into the medical device certification. Last point under this sector is VC financing. When it comes to a medical device, unfortunately, there are very few number of VCs who understand the medical device market and who are able to put in that money for that 7 to 10 year time period that it takes for your medical device to actually get onto the market. So that's something, by going that route, it could be a possibility that you could be limiting your options in terms of financing. But it's not impossible, but at the same time, it's very limited. So finding the right people who can invest in a medical device is something that you have to find. And if you do decide to go on a medical device certification, the costs associated with it are pretty high. So this is something to take into account before deep diving into this space. Coming to the last area. So once you have your medical device certification, what is the next step? The next step is to obviously pilot your solutions. I mean, even better if you can sell, but another route to selling your technology is by going through pilots. And finding the right piloting partners is very important. And before that, defining what you want to achieve out of your pilots is very important. Because as Yuka previously mentioned, from the startup's perspective, you may want to evaluate the pilot based on certain things, but the piloting partner may have completely different use for your technology. So it's always better to define this along with your piloting partner and see where it goes. So in our case, after a medical device certification, we approached one of Finland's largest private healthcare provider. We were rejected by them because they needed a higher device certification. So then we approached Finland's other largest private healthcare service providers. Again, for obvious reasons, I cannot disclose who these people are, but we managed to get a pilot through some of the networks that Arnora had, and we were able to get that off where our device was used for screening incoming COVID patients for the COVID cohort in a particular location. More domestically, we've been introduced through Silmuskooti. This is again an assisted living facility where our devices are being used to monitor how the elders breathe throughout the evenings, and also in case they have to get out of their beds, or if they leave their beds, we have an alarm that immediately gets notified to the caretakers so that they can immediately go and assist them in getting out of bed and similar uses. More internationally, we've been piloting with the Skåne municipality in Sweden. This is again, it was a COVID case where our devices was sent home to the COVID patients, and the doctors were monitoring them remotely and only calling them to the hospital if their parameters have changed over time. And the last one was the Olot hospital in Spain, where again, since it's a respimeter, one of the very key indicators when it comes to hospitalization is the early warning score prediction. And the early warning score prediction is nothing but a list of 5-6 parameters that you as a hospital, as an authority, determine that which person needs higher care or more priority. And one of the parameters to include is the respiratory rate. And conventionally, how it's done is by observing the person's chest movement and observing at a watch, and then correlating with time. But again, our device, since it already has the respiration rate, it's being piloted currently at the Olot hospital. So how we've been associated with Arnora is, other than whatever I've already mentioned with connecting us to the EMC test labs and with the test bed facilities, is also introducing us to our current partner being Västerås. We had come to a point in Henkaus where we had identified that yes, the medical device route is good, was great, but then the time to make a certain decision when it comes to hospitals can take anywhere from 6 to 9 months, and that as a startup is limited. So that's when we decided to take a pivot. We got in touch with Arnora, and again, we were happy that they introduced us to Västerås, and now we have an offering for a wider set of audience rather than only the hospitals. So that was pretty much it. Thank you so much. I think if there's any questions, we'll be here to answer.
Yeah. Let's take questions at the end if needed. And Antti Pellinen from Confienta is unfortunately not here to here with us today, but Antti is
in a remote location. Yeah. Good afternoon.
I'll stop sharing and you can take over.
Please do. Okay. Fantastic, and it's great being with you today. And thank you very much for the opportunity to share some views on the topic we have on the list. And please confirm that you are seeing the whole picture, because sometimes it's pretty challenging.
Yes, we are.
Thank you indeed. So the topic to discuss today is subcontracting, and the second one, building multinational distribution channels. And obviously both of these are extremely wide topics and not suitable to cover in 10 minutes or so. But I would like to give you a little bit of insights that we have been collecting during our operations, and maybe to give you something to think about. And of course, if the topic is super interesting to you, then it would be possible to have a separate session regarding these and other sessions, and other parts of this as well. So Confienta is approaching the private and public healthcare providers as well as consumers directly. We provide the wrist phone or safety bracelet services. On the right hand side, you can see the latest generation of our devices. Wrist phone with one button only, and of course this all is programmable. So basically, we have a reachability chain behind the button that when the end customer presses the button, then the call will be transferred according to the predefined settings or numbers. And we started our operations like 10 years ago. In the very beginning, we were approaching the consumers directly. However, that requires quite a lot of supporting processes to go and do the sales, deliveries, and the support by ourselves. So we have started to utilize the channels and channel sales chains to increasing the number, and now most of the sales are going via channels. Obviously, it's easy to have a direct sales in Finland, but when approaching other markets and other language areas, the local presence is extremely valuable, essential, I would say. And furthermore, we are not producing or manufacturing any of the devices ourselves. So we are using international subcontracting and partially in development and the specifications and actually the devices themselves or the technology behind the devices. But definitely all the manufacturing part of all of the devices. So unfortunately, manufacturing in Finland is not viable at this point of time. And this is actually the base we have. I have collected a few points to share with you, and I divided them actually accordingly. So when we first look at the subcontracting and especially multinational subcontracting, it's obvious that we could divide the challenges as well as the processes into two parts. First, actually, in our case, the development part. Then the second one is the production phase or the manufacturing, in a sense, and both have slightly different characteristics. However, there are a number of common things that are extremely important. And I'm sure it's not a surprise to you that I will start with the specifications. And without specifications, both of these will fail for sure. So without generalizing too much, I would say that the proper specifications and as good specifications as possible for either the R&D work or the development or the manufacturing or production is essential. So we can be 100% sure that when we describe the solve outcome in one way, there's quite a lot of ways to misunderstand that. So the more complete the specifications are, the better success rate there are in the projects. Arnora has been helping us in the building the specifications and especially collecting the information from the actual end customers into the products, which is essential for the commercial success of the service of the product itself. But going to the subcontracting, first of all, there is no in multinational subcontracting. There's no common language, not a common native language, and then there's a cultural differences, especially if we manufacture something in or have a development in Asian countries like China or India. And finding a good partner there is essential, definitely yes, but keeping the dialogue continuously ongoing throughout the project is essential. So I would say that the common language is more or less developed during the project. Whatever we mean by latency, whatever we mean by usability, whatever we mean by different product features or actually the R&D process features, etc. and having a good cooperation and a longer term cooperation is beneficial in this sense. Then of course the time zones when having the meetings, and Asia is safe in a sense that it's possible to have the meetings during the same day. However, the replies to emails are not necessarily available during the same day, which actually is challenging, because that may actually in an email dialogue, for example, may provide extra delays in some relevant things. Then the project management, and we have actually learned that it's important to have a project management on our side as well as on the development organization as well. So that the project management can have a common view, have a continuous dialogue on the project, where we are, and other specifications and the targets met. Then of course the acceptance, when the development work is ready to be accepted, when the device, we can see here, is having the technological specifications or the technological implementations that we can say, yes, this is good for our customers. And this topic is quite challenging, that we have for example, with this device we have used completely outsourced technical development, but we ended up in challenges, for example, in testing the device in a real world environment. A simple thing, that the availability of mobile networks and a different generation networks may have, or in our case had some additional delays. Our partner used 2G networks. We wanted to use 2G, 3G, and mainly 4G networks with voice over LTE capabilities, and of course that all has an impact on the battery life of the device, which is essential when we talk about a device that is designed for elderly. Thus, it's all about testing, and never stop testing. It's and do test all the features. So when the things are in production, when the manufacturing has started, it's very costly to make any changes. Then of course the payment terms. What are the milestones, and do we understand the milestones in the same way? Back to the common language. So the more precisely we define the payment terms and the milestones needed for the payments, the better project will be. Then some specific manufacturing or production specific idea or insights or learnings what we have had, and unfortunately there's one over the others. In the COVID pandemic times, the component availability has been quite challenging. So we started with some of the components that were generally available in 5-week delivery times, but now the delivery times are even 50 weeks or 70 weeks, which practically means it's more than a year. And of course, we want to have the other products to the market as fast as possible, partially because there's quite a lot of funding or finances tied to the orders. But then again, our business is completely reliable on these devices. So how to mitigate the challenges in the component shortage and the component availability? That is one of the key points here. Logistics is surprisingly enough least of our problems here, but that has to be taken into consideration from cost-wise and from time-wise as well. Quality assurance. So how do we guarantee that the batch number 3 is of the same quality as batch number 5 or batch number 1? Because when we talk about tangible goods, it's actually quite clear that the production quality may vary, and we just have to make sure that it doesn't really vary to the downside. Payment terms very much tied to the component shortage at this point. So for the components, it's unfortunately at the moment generally accepted terms are prepayment 100%. And if the delivery times are like dozens of weeks or even more, then there's quite a lot of financial assets tied to these orders. Obviously, warranty has to be agreed upon. Is it warranty or is it a swap stock that the manufacturing is providing? Depending very much on the case. In investment assets, the warranty is and the spare parts is essential. But with our case, swap stock is working better. Okay, then very briefly that building the multinational distribution channels, and as mentioned, we do have our own sales as well. And I have divided this into 2 parts as well, one for the intangible goods and the other one for tangible products or tangible goods. And the common challenges what we have here is, of course, the target segments. And do we understand the target segments the same way on both sides? Is the distribution channel targeting the segments that we are hoping them to do so? Do they have a proper coverage for that particular target segment? And if they don't, what should they do to reach that? Then, of course, the question is always about exclusivity. And this is a very complex question in the sense that the minimum sales targets are very usually connected with exclusivity, but in some cases we have to provide exclusivity without the sales targets, especially with new products. That applies both for intangible and tangible products. The role of the reseller is the reseller a proper reseller buying things and services for its own balance sheet, or is it just an agent that is doing the sales work on behalf of us? And that has an impact on the pricing principles as well, and the freedom of price setting by the channel. So agent is very much tied to the supplier's price list, whereas reseller has a usually more freedom in setting the prices. Then the national regulation, especially on the services side, who is the party that needs to comply with them? Thus, who is the party that is providing services in the market? And that is key, that has to be provided, a key item that has to be agreed on. Support has to be organized. Usually the distribution channel takes in our case the first level support, but then we are providing the tier 2, tier 3 support as well. And when we look at the tangible products, we do have a logistics. Hopefully Incoterms X works, and the logistics costs have to be taken into consideration. Regulations as well, especially with investment goods, who is making the installation, spare parts or spare part inventory, and of course the warranty as well as the support. But these are actually mainly questions, and I would like to keep this list as a whole items that needs to be checked, and of course going all this through in detail would take a day or two. Okay, thank you indeed, and hope this raised some ideas or questions. And do we have time for Q&A, or are we going forward?
Alexander, shall we take all the questions in one go, or?
Of course, we can start with the questions for you and your partners, and then we can move on with the questions for the rest of the presenters. I have one question for you. You mentioned something really interesting at the very beginning. You mentioned that there is a process of transition of decision making from the municipalities to the government, a process which includes the centralization of decision making what concerns the provision of care and healthcare to older patients, but patients in general. So my question is, what are the factors that provoked or which indirectly supports this transition process? Why is this transition process taking place in Finland?
Thank you for the question. I have the same question personally. The transition in the healthcare or the providing of these healthcare services, it's been discussed politically, I don't know, for past 20 years, and the main goal, of course, has been to create savings and do stuff more efficiently. And the last government we had was suggesting certain model which didn't suit everybody's preferences in political sense. So the current government again successes something, and now they were able to push it through, even though, let's say, now I would be the one who says that it doesn't necessarily work the best. But it's money. It's basically the money. They are looking for the cheaper solution. But the problem with this upcoming model is that previously we had like governmental level and we had the municipal level, and municipal level took care of the basic healthcare. Now we have governmental level, municipal level, and then we have something in between, sort of a regional level. And there's too much excess work involved. But yeah. That's my opinion, but money, they are aiming to make it cheaper.
All right, thank you. And I have one more question for you regarding the challenges of companies which you help from outside of the EU to establish, let's say, their position in the European Union, besides the legal advice they need, and besides all the certification, European certification they need to go through. What are the other challenges that they faced on the way to successfully introducing their products to the, so to say, European customers? Are there any issues regarding the acceptance of the products? Any other factors which refer to the cultural, socioeconomic background of the customers? What are your impressions?
Maybe Abhishek can collaborate here a little bit. As I told in the beginning, we are situated in the eastern border of Finland. So the closest big city is St. Petersburg, Russia, and thus in previous times we have been of very much this area of Finland has been really interesting towards Russian entrepreneurs, Russian companies to enter EU market, because it's 1 hour 15 minutes by train or something like that. Or it was. Nowadays it's not. There's nothing going on between there. So in that sense, the market changed 2 months ago drastically. If we consider about the cultural impacts and that kind of stuff. I would say that when the company is operating and especially if it's even established to Finnish side, or let's say EU in general, I'm not quite sure if there is very much cultural differences. Then it's a European company and that's fine. There is one very interesting company operating here in Lappeenranta, and I have no idea how they are actually doing nowadays. It's a Russian-based company, that imports all the raw materials, or at least imported, not sure if it's possible anymore, imports all materials from Russia, makes the production within EU, and then ships all products back to Russia because they get the marking that it is manufactured in EU and according to Finnish legislation. Abhishek, maybe you have something.
Yeah, and from the other perspective, when you come, so I'm originally from India, and then that transition from there to the EU and then even Finland, there is a little bit of know-how that that understanding that needs to be achieved in terms of just how the market operates, things for like raw materials that you order. Sometimes in India, or it's even things operate, or logistics even operate during the weekends. But over here, depending on the cases, you have to take a more proactive approach to your procurement, because certain things could be delayed based on either your location or based on the availability. So that's again some of the limitations, not limitations, but it's just understanding how the system works. And so even if we have to deliver something to our customers, and if we know it's not going to move over the weekend, we have to plan our whole routine in such a way that it's more accommodating to all of this. So I think culturally, when at least people come from abroad and set up companies here, that's an understanding that that we have to acquire. And of course, the second part is if you get in touch with someone who's already here, the connections they have to either the local providers who can, at least help, achieve those certain components or whatever it is specifically that you need. So those connections can only be achieved when you actually reach, the country. So I think culturally, and as well as business ethics in a way that has to be, is probably in every country in the EU is also slightly different in that aspect. And that has to be just learned on the ground as you're, going ahead with your company.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I have one more question for you regarding your solution. You mentioned that against the background of the COVID pandemic, there was a sudden market demand, so to say, for this solution. Are there any other, so to say, methods or instruments to ensure the acceptance of your solutions, like let's say the involvement of the end users in the design, or what are the approaches that you apply in your startup to ensure that your solution will be accepted, widely used, and also in long term?
I think that's a very important yet tricky question that you solve every day. You try to. It's not either we solved it or we didn't. It's something that you incrementally do every day. And initially, I think a few years back, we were so within this medtech space that everything we do was within that confines, and it has to be done according to a particular order. And of course, now that product line is still there, but what we did was we pivoted to say how we could offer our products, say, outside the medical realm. So of course, your certification, your EMC tests, and everything still stand true. Everything stands true, but how you can accommodate. So other than, of course, making slight design changes, we also had to, limit in terms of what our product can do. So of course, our technology can be used on infants, it can be used on babies, but there's a certain line that we have to draw because of certain limitations. And then, when you choose business-wise, you just focus on adults or the elderly. Now that's a separate market. Now, if you want to go towards sports and athletes, that's again a different market altogether. So we had to change again, other than the product itself, even the business ideology slightly to enter different markets, although within the health tech space. Let's put it that way.
All right, thank you. And I have one more question for your colleague from Confienta. I just wanted to ask you which are the end user groups of your smartwatch, and also again the question of the involvement of the end users in the design of the solution and tackling the challenge of the acceptance of the solutions. could you please elaborate a little bit on this? Which are the end user groups of your watch, and how you ensure that the watch will be well accepted by your customers?
I think I need to answer that. Antti Pelinen was unfortunately he had to leave for another occasion. We can definitely Antti can definitely give you a better answer like on through email, for example. But I do know that the main target groups for the wrist phone is the elderly living alone at home. The product is built upon 4G technology, so it doesn't require any like base stations to the homes or so, and thus it works worldwide. And they were with the design thing, they were targeting towards, let's say, less medical looking device, so that it could fit into the wrists of also those elderly that potentially could even use normal phones still. And so from basically anyone who is interested in a wrist phone towards the people who might need like nursing home, almost nursing home phase. So what was the other aspect you were asking?
The other aspect was the co-design of the product and ensuring the acceptance of the product, because the market is, let's say, saturated. There are a lot of providers of such technology, so certainly there is a challenge to, let's say, make your product successful and widely used by your end user group. So I was interested just to have some more inputs on that matter, so we can also, let's say, transmit this information to into other upcoming European Union projects which are seeking to test, develop such solutions. So what are the methods or approaches to ensure that this wristband will be successfully applied on the market or accepted by the end user?
Well, the design part was done with the Finnish companies, and then, as Antti told us, the actual manufacturing was done abroad. The acceptance part we did. Actually, Arnora was also involved in those. We did like a target group tests with the prototypes and gave the device to potential users for testing, and we did learn a lot during those. For example, as Antti showed, there's the button on the phone, and it was found that yes, the button is, let's say, suitable in size, but it is too hard to push it when you are an old person and with a fragile hands and not that much force anymore. Then pushing the button required too much force, so that actually returned the product to the subcontractor for redesign on that bit. What else can I tell you about it? I think it would be better if Antti answers that in a written format, because I've been along, but not that close.
Thank you.
I can briefly add in Arvita's format. I mean, just briefly to answer that. I mean, like I mentioned, if it is a medical device, there's not much you can do once you've already gotten the certification. Because if you go down that route, you get your certification, then if you have to change even the external appearance or the enclosure, it may be subject to partial EMC tests. That again is something that you have to decide later on, but if you've already done it, it will stay like that till you decide to do something about it.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any questions for our guests from Finland, from the audience? If there are no such questions, I would like to ask Mariana from PHARA-ON. It's really amazing that you managed to involve so many, let's say, all the persons in the pilots, in testing the solution, etc. But is there a particular approach, or how do you explain the benefits to this particular target group of participating in the pilots? Do you have a specific approach? Because the inputs that you acquire from them are really, really important for the success of the pilot, and like our guest mentioned, for the modification of the solution. So how you ensure that that all the persons are motivated to participate in these pilot activities?
Okay, so I'll try to find the best way to maybe explain this. So there's a very important factor, which is our technical directors from all our services. They are very close to all our users. So in a way, they already have a very, very strong basis of trust. And that helps a lot when we are trying to have them involved in projects. But apart from that, we also have a very personalized approach in how we also have of course a reason for inviting them. So we also try to reason with them, like we have this user who is in a wheelchair. So of course it would benefit from these services. And of course, when we explained to him, we were like, well, the idea is to have services on demand. It would be interesting maybe for you to try this. And of course he was like, of course I would like to try that. And he's also maybe our user that is the most ICT savvy, let's say it. But apart from that, we have other users that they are constantly giving us feedback, well, not directly to us because we are the innovation department, but to our colleagues in all the services. And we do take all the feedback that they give us into account. So when we are approaching people, we do take into account everything else that has been told about maybe unmet needs that they already have, or maybe things that they wish they could have. We are very attentive. As I mentioned, we have the integrated in-person centered model where we try to make sure we are personalizing our services to each of our users. And that also translates into all of these approaches that we have with them. So when we invite them, we have first the fact that we have these teams that are very close to the users, and also a personalized approach in how we invite them. We try to emphasize what would be beneficial for that person. We don't use a common approach. I think that makes all the difference, perhaps. But we are still trying to, of course, assess this, and we're always trying to find better ways to keep people engaged, because there are different reasons for people to be engaged. Some people like to feel like they are giving feedback and they are being helpful and they are contributing to society in a way. Okay, that's great. Some people are very isolated. We have people in home care services. So, of course, some of those people actually just need some interaction, just need to be involved in something. So there are different also needs that they have that we can also meet by inviting them to this project. So it's very case by case, a very case by case approach. I'm not sure if I was very clear in my explanation. I do hope I made myself clear by this. I don't know if there's any other question in that regard.
I fully understand your answer. Definitely, an older person differs from an older person, so a person-centered approach is always really important here. Are there any other questions from Mariana?
If I may,
of course.
Mariana, your project seems very interesting, and I see that one call is now already closed, but I gathered from your presentation that there are new upcoming calls. If let's say some company from our network, for example, would be interested in participating in the calls, what would be the best way of going forward? Should we contact you or just send something through the internet? How do you want to operate?
Maybe the best way would be to, and thank you for your question, first of all. Maybe I would give you my email, ask you to send all the information that you need and what exactly you need in email, and I will talk with the partners in the project and try to assess the best people for you to talk with or the best process to follow, because I'm actually not involved directly in that. It's a very, very big project. As I mentioned, we are 42 partners, so I'm not directly involved with the open calls, but I can talk with the partners who are and try to assess that. So maybe that's the best way to go forward. Give you my email. Is that all right?
Yes, I believe we already have it.
Oh yes, you do indeed. So just send me an email, and I will try to talk with the right partners and give you the information that you need.
Excellent. May I ask, when is the next call coming?
Well, I have to confirm that the months. Many projects, I will see the information as well. I don't want to give you the wrong information.
But
I will
still
have
this
to
year,
check that.
this year, or is it
Yes,
next year?
I think it's this year. Yes.
Okay.
But I have to assess, because that open call, I know the other open call doesn't have I don't think it has exactly the same objectives as the first one. I have to check that. But I will check all that information for you.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for your question. Well, I'm not sure if maybe the question that we received on the chat, maybe I could just give you some more feedback. I don't want to delay because I know we're late already. But in regards to
please feel free.
Enable's question, I'm sorry. Okay, just to give you a bit more details, it's very quick, I promise. But in regards to how we built the feedback database and everything else, in PHARA-ON, we did the following process. So in the pre-validation sessions, we used the after scenario questionnaires and the system usability scales questionnaires to assess all the data. And we also wrote down everything else that we could assess, whether it was verbal or non-verbal. After that, and we, of course, this is with all the partners. There are different partners involved, and they have different responsibilities. And then after this part, we had to, everything that was related to issues or bugs had to be reported to GitLab. So the technological partners could have access to it, and we could also see the process, and they could put filters, whether it was in development or if it was priority or not. So we could have all the information in that repository in GitLab. And after that, we also have a common document, because we are working collaboratively always with Caritas. So Natalia also is involved in this process. We are always working together in this, and with all the colleagues at Caritas. And we have a collaborative file where we compiled all the feedback that we had from their sessions of pre-validation and our sessions of pre-validation. We compiled a file. Then we also have another file with the partners that have the same technologies in common. So we also have priorities for the partners, so we don't overburden the technological partners. And apart from that, there is also some more suggestions and smaller feedbacks that we also sometimes exchange emails. So there are a lot of iterative steps in this process, and we are always going back and forth, and we are testing with the participants, and we are also testing ourselves the technology. So we're always going back and forth and communicating. A lot of communication is very important to make sure nothing is missing, because there is a lot of information, and the partners are providing, well, one of the partners is providing technology to many pilots, so we have to be very surgical in how we transmit information. And I hope this answers everything else.
Thank you, Mariana.
I think I've talked enough. You're very welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions from the audience? Well, if there are not such, I would like to say a couple of things before we close today's webinar, since this is our very last webinar of Platform Uptake. It was really a pleasure to be part of this event and have the opportunity to get some further in-depth insights into the lessons learned and success factors for the uptake of open platforms and digital technology for active and health aging in general. It's also great to see that there's already so much done in terms of technology which is being developed to tackle real-life challenges of high relevance for the various stakeholders in the field, and especially its potential socioeconomic impact for the European societies as a whole. I would like to also use the opportunity to say a big thank you to the PlatformUptake.eu consortium for the great support and big efforts being put in the last 29 months, especially against the background of the circumstances derived from the pandemic. There was certainly some challenge in this context, but with such a great team, we managed not only to meet, but also exceed the project's goal. So once again, on behalf of our consortium, I would like to thank you for your participation in today's webinar. And in case you're interested in getting in touch in one of our network partners or consortium partners, please feel free to approach us either at our office email or through one of these channels. Thank you very much for joining us today, and I wish you a nice rest of the day. Thank you.